Throughout history, the geopolitical landscape has been in constant flux. Boundaries redrawn, alliances forged, and unions dissolved. The world map has borne witness to the ebb and flow of nations' ambitions and aspirations, and even with all the turmoil in the world today, the actual political map has probably never been more stable. Welcome to the Bird's Eye Report, where today we'll embark on an insightful journey into the realm of potential future unifications. From socio-economic alignments to shared cultural legacies, we'll examine the various catalysts that could drive countries to unite in the decades to come. Some functioning as one in all but name, others just distant memories or future dreams. Let's start off with one of the most discussed potential unifications, the Koreas, North and South Korea. Both countries were once a single nation, and there's hope among many for a reunified Korea, although the political and economic challenges are substantial. From the ancient dynasties that ruled the entire peninsula to the more recent memory of the Korean War, the ties that bind these two nations are powerful. Beyond the political rhetoric, the Korean people share language, traditions, and a profound cultural bond. The Korean Peninsula, a land with shared history that stretches back over 4,000 years, has seen its fair share of dynasties, invasions, and cultural evolutions. The last century, however, has been particularly turbulent. The annexation of Korea by Japan in 1910 marked the beginning of a harsh period of colonial rule, lasting until Japan's surrender at the end of World War II in 1945. The peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel into Soviet and American zones of occupation. The failure to hold free elections throughout the Korean peninsula in 1948 deepened the divide, leading to the establishment of two separate states, the Republic of Korea in the south and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, kinda ironic, in the north. Tensions eventually culminated in the Korean War in the 1950s, which ended in an armistice but not a peace treaty, leaving the two Koreas technically at war till this day. Inter-Korean relations have seen significant ups and downs. The early 2000s witnessed a period known as the Sunshine Policy, where South Korea aimed for peaceful cooperation and reconciliation with the North. This period saw two major summits in 2000 and 2007. After 11 years, a renewed diplomatic effort in 2018 led to three summits between South Korean President Moon and North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. These summits generated hope for improved relations, denuclearization talks, and potential economic cooperation. Despite the diplomatic overtures, military tensions have been a constant concern. North Korea has carried out several missile tests, including intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the US mainland. These tests, often perceived as provocations, have led to heightened tensions in the region and globally. While North Korea views its nuclear arsenal as essential for its security, others, especially South Korea, the US, and Japan, see it as a significant threat. Efforts to denuclearize the Korean peninsula, including talks between President Trump and Kim Jong-un in 2018 and 2019, showed initial promise, but did not result in a comprehensive agreement. The economic gap between the two Koreas is also massive. South Korea boasts a dynamic economy marked by advanced technology, entertainment exports, and global brands, while North Korea's economy remains isolated, mainly due to the strict international sanctions imposed because of its nuclear and missile programs. This isolation has led to economic hardships, with reports of food shortages and other challenges as well. The division of the Koreas has resulted in families being separated for decades. Although there has been some family reunion events facilitated by the Red Cross, many individuals have passed away without reuniting with their families across the border. Additionally, issues related to defectors from North Korea, their tales of escape, and the challenges they face in the South are also significant in the broader context of inter-Korean relations. On a brighter note though, cultural and sports diplomacy has shown promise. For example, the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea saw athletes from both Koreas march together under a unified flag during the opening ceremony, a symbolic gesture that many found moving. While the dream of reunification is powerful, it's also complex. Beyond this shared culture, language, and traditions lies a significant disparity in economic development, like I mentioned earlier, with South Korea being a global economic powerhouse and North Korea facing economic struggles partially due to international sanctions. A unified Korea could benefit from the combination of the South's technological prowess and the North's natural resources. North Korea is known to possess vast mineral resources, including rare earths, which could be significant for industries such as electronics and renewable energy. South Korea's established global trade networks could be employed to harness these resources. Although when it comes to the response of South Koreans, the opinions are completely divided. The older generation is eager to unify, remembering a once unified Korea, while the younger population is afraid of the consequences. More than 70% of South Koreans in their 20s are opposing the unification, afraid of employment, living costs, and higher taxes needed to develop the economic infrastructure between the countries. To put this economic gap into context and in simple terms, the unification of East and West Germany in 1990 had an income per capita ratio of 3:1, West versus East, whereas North versus South Korea is 22:1, making the current economic situation in North Korea far worse than the one in Germany. If both Koreas unite, the economic infrastructure can potentially lead to an economic collapse, with costs up to $1 trillion. Although if unified, the country has potential of success and would have a possibility of surpassing G7 countries in terms of GDP. As for politics, there's the challenge of integrating two vastly different political systems: South Korea's democratic governance and North Korea's one-party rule under the Kim dynasty. The presence and interest of global powers, including the US, China, and Russia, further adds layers of complexity to the reunification cause. Beyond politics and economics, there's also the human element. Generations in North Korea and South Korea have grown up under different systems, leading to varied worldviews, lifestyles, and even dialect differences. Integrating the populations would require significant efforts in education, communication, and perhaps even counseling. Reports of human rights abuses in North Korea, including labor camps, would need addressing as well. A unified Korea would need to grapple with justice, rehabilitation, and reconciliation in the face of such revelations. While the challenges are significant, the aspiration for United Peninsula remains, at least for the foreseeable future, offering a vision of a united future that draws from a shared past. The East African Federation is a proposed political union of several East African countries. Historically, parts of East Africa were linked during the colonial era as British East Africa. The concept has since evolved, especially with the establishment of the East African Community in 1967, which was revived in 2000 after a decade-long hiatus. The East African Community consists of 7 member states: Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Once again, probably just as ironic as North Korea. These countries have gradually integrated in various sectors over the years, including trade, infrastructure development, and even a shared East African passport. There's ongoing debate and discussion on transitioning from a community to a federation, which would mean deeper political, economic, and possibly even military integration. After long decades of trying, in 2018, the federation finally started drafting its own constitution, which was to be implemented by 2023, although the COVID pandemic disrupted their goal. The East African Federation has potential to be large and powerful, but political corruption plays a huge part in the area, and a great deal of people in the region believe that this unification can make the corruption even worse. The varying political systems, levels of governance, and internal politics of each nation can complicate the unification process. By merging resources and integrating economies, the East African Federation could become a significant economic bloc in Africa, encouraging foreign investment and improving intra-African trade. The members within the Federation, through their Common Market Protocol, would have free trade, allowing greater economic prosperity and flexibility. Diplomatic processes would also be easier, providing more foreign investment opportunities and jobs in the region. The East African Federation, if realized, would also become one of Africa's largest federations in terms of land area and population, the 7th largest country in the world and the 4th most populated. Despite each nation's unique culture, there are shared linguistic, cultural, and historical ties across the region that can serve as a foundation for a closer union. A federation could also provide a framework for resolving internal conflicts and disputes through dialogue rather than conflict, promoting stability in a region that has seen its fair share of disruptions. The regional integration would focus more on the region's peace, governance, and security. United, the East African nations could wield substantial diplomatic influence in continental and global affairs. However, the path to the Federation is not without challenges. Even though the countries officially adopted Swahili as their official language, the region has tons of different dialects, which may lead to communication problems. There are also fears among some nations that their interest might be overshadowed, especially by larger and more economically dominant countries like Kenya or Tanzania. While integration can lead to overall growth, disparities between member states can lead to unequal benefits. The member countries have diverse political systems and governance structures, leading to occasional clashes in vision and implementation. The region also faces threats from extremist groups, and while there have been collaborative efforts to counter these, challenges persist. While this idea seems more realistic with just the original proposed members, Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda, the situation has been complicated with the inclusion of South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The latter two are by far the least developed and the ones with the most internal turmoil, leading some experts to say that their inclusion has been a mistake. The idea of an East African Federation holds promise. The transition from vision to reality requires careful navigation of geopolitical, economic, and socio-cultural intricacies. Hi, Hawk here, quick intermission. So it should be noted that after this video was recorded and already finished, but before it was published, at the latest meeting of the East African Community, Somalia was also admitted to the East African Community and as a potential member of the East African Federation. Now, according to most experts, this is once again a negative thing, just like the inclusion of South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and most reactions have been mixed to negative. It remains to be seen what the actual impact is, but like I just said, it's probably not a very good thing. The story of China and Taiwan is deeply intertwined with the larger narrative of China's 20th century transformations. Following the Xinhai Revolution in 1911, which ended the Qing dynasty, the Republic of China was established. However, the subsequent decades were marked by power struggles, with the Kuomintang eventually establishing control over much of China. The situation, however, shifted following World War II. The civil war between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party of China intensified, culminating in the Kuomintang's retreat to Taiwan in 1949. Even though both of these parties worked together during the Second World War. The Communists under Mao Zedong then established the People's Republic of China on the mainland. Since then, both the PRC and the ROC, now known as Taiwan, have existed as separate entities, each viewing itself as the legitimate government of all of China. The Taiwan Strait, a 180-kilometer wide stretch of water, is all that separates Taiwan from mainland China. However, the political and ideological chasm is much broader. One of the major issues lies in diplomatic recognition. The People's Republic of China asserts that there's only one China and that Taiwan is an inalienable part of it. Consequently, countries that wish to establish diplomatic relations with the PRC must sever official ties with Taiwan. As a result, over the years, the number of countries that officially recognize Taiwan has dwindled. However, many nations maintain unofficial relations with Taiwan and have representative offices in each other's territories. While the PRC claims Taiwan as its province, Taiwan sees itself as a sovereign state. The One China policy, supported by the PRC, asserts that there's only one China that includes both the mainland and Taiwan. Yet, the interpretation of what One China means varies. Despite political tensions, cross-strait economic interactions have grown significantly. Taiwan has invested heavily in the Chinese mainland, and there's substantial trade between the two sides. Moreover, many Taiwanese companies play key roles in global supply chains, especially in technology sectors, and have significant operations in China. However, when it comes to military affairs, tensions rise. China hasn't shied away from flexing its military muscle near Taiwan. Meanwhile, Taiwan is on a constant quest to modernize its forces, often with equipment from its most significant informal ally, the United States. And while the US does not officially recognize Taiwan, it maintains a robust unofficial relationship with the island, underpinned by the Taiwan Relations Act. This act commits the US to assist Taiwan in maintaining its defensive capabilities. The US has, over the years, approved significant arms sales to Taiwan, a point of contention with Beijing. Over the decades, Taiwan has transformed from an authoritarian regime to a vibrant democracy. This democratic revolution and the island's distinct history have shaped a unique Taiwanese identity, blending its rich history with democratic values. Surveys often indicate that a growing number of Taiwanese, especially among the younger generation, identify solely as Taiwanese rather than Chinese. This shift in identity plays a significant role in the island's politics and its view towards the mainland. The Taiwan issue isn't just a bilateral matter either. It's deeply embedded with the larger fabric of global geopolitics, especially the US-China strategic competition. The South China Sea, where China has territorial claims overlapping with several neighbors, further complicates the regional dynamic. The situation between China and Taiwan is one of the most intricate in modern geopolitics, balancing between historical claims and current realities and future aspirations. The stakes are high, with implications not just for the two sides, but for the broader Indo-Pacific region and global stability. China, as one of the greatest powers in the world, spends a lot of their money on their defense, powered by high technology both on land and in the cyber world. The imbalance between both sides has potential for China to use their power, although according to expert opinions, many believe that the likelihood of that happening is low. A war against Taiwan means war against the US, which is one of Taiwan's key supporters. Even though many experts speculated that with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China would feel emboldened to finally make a move for Taiwan, that same war has shown China that an attack on a smaller and weaker country can lead to long-term consequences, which is potentially making them more conscious. Even though for China, Taiwan is essential for establishing their great power status, such a move would have a huge impact on the whole world. Ideally, the two sides would sit at a diplomatic table and hammer out the terms of unification. Such negotiations would encompass political agreements, security guarantees, economic integration, and assurances about preserving Taiwan's distinct identity and democratic institutions. The one country, two systems approach originally proposed for unification with Hong Kong and Macau allows a degree of political autonomy for territories while recognizing Chinese sovereignty. However, with the events in Hong Kong and the resulting concerns over erosion of freedoms, this model is viewed skeptically in Taiwan. While the other approach, conventional war, carries enormous risks, as it would likely lead to international intervention and severe geopolitical consequences, several magnitudes of order larger than the global consequences felt by the war in Ukraine. While its historical timeline boasts over 10,000 years of civilization, conquests, and claims by various empires, today's Cyprus narrative is dominated by a more recent divide: the division between the Greek Cypriot South and the Turkish Cypriot North. The seeds of the current divide were sown post-World War II, with Greek Cypriots desiring union with Greece and Turkish Cypriots preferring either independence or a partition association with Turkey. This inter-community strife culminated in the tumultuous events of 1974. The military junta in Greece at this time supported the concept of union with Cyprus. Makarios, though originally a supporter of the union, had become more moderate and was seen as an obstacle. The Greek military junta, which was ruling Greece at the time, bagged a coup against President Makarios III, then leader of Cyprus. The coup was successful and Makarios fled the country. Nikos Samson, a staunch supporter of the union, was installed as the president. However, this change in leadership was short-lived. Citing the 1960 Treaty of Guarantee, which allowed Turkey, Greece, and the UK to intervene if Cyprus's independence was threatened, Turkey launched a military intervention which they referred to as a peace operation to protect the Turkish Cypriot minority. By the time the first phase of the Turkish intervention ended, they controlled about 3% of the island. Facing intense political pressure due to the coup in Cyprus and its consequences, the Greek military junta collapsed. With the coup regime collapsed and peace talks in Geneva failing to yield results, Turkey launched a second military intervention in Cyprus, extending its control over more of the island. By the end of this phase, Turkey had control over about 36% of Cypriot territory. Post-1974 saw significant population shifts. Turkish Cypriots moved north, while Greek Cypriots relocated south. The north has since seen an influx of settlers from Turkey, adding a new dimension to the demographic landscape. After the coup by the Greek military junta and the subsequent Turkish intervention, Cyprus found itself fractured. The North proclaimed itself the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus in 1983, but only Turkey has recognized this declaration. Meanwhile, the Republic of Cyprus in the South is recognized as the legitimate government for the entire island by the international community, excluding Turkey. The United Nations peacekeeping force in Cyprus patrols the buffer zone, which has been established between the two nations, also called the Green Line. This green line spans the length of the entire island. While this zone prevents direct conflicts, it also stands as a poignant symbol of division. Since the division, there have been multiple rounds of UN-mediated talks aimed at reunification. Notably, the Annan Plan of 2004 proposed a united Cyprus Federation. While the plan was accepted by a majority of Turkish Cypriots, it was rejected by Greek Cypriots. Talks have been on again, off again since then, but a comprehensive solution remains elusive. Both communities have lived together for centuries and share a deep-rooted cultural and historical bond. This shared heritage could be a unifying force. A unified Cyprus could attract more foreign investments and foster stronger trade relationships. The removal of these barriers and the seamless flow of goods and services would likely enhance the economic productivity of the entire island. Tourism is another significant sector. A peaceful, unified island would be even more attractive to international tourists, potentially becoming a top Mediterranean destination. Unification could play a crucial role in establishing security in the Eastern Mediterranean region, especially given the area's strategic importance. As the Republic of Cyprus is already an EU member, a united Cyprus would mean the entire island enjoys the benefits of EU membership, including funding, trade advantages, and freedom of movement. Decades of division, however, have engendered mistrust, shaped by narratives of historical grievances. However, many Cypriots on both sides, especially the younger generation, express a desire for reunification and a shared future. Grassroots initiatives and bicommunal projects strive to bridge these divides. Now, a quick note here, yes, Cyprus is the only nation that I've decided to include in today's video that is technically, officially, or de jure one country, while at the same time also being technically, unofficially, or de facto two different countries. However, I still found it fascinating enough and I think it's worth discussing. Moldova, situated between Romania and Ukraine, may be small in size, but carries a rich tapestry of history. Once part of the historical region of Moldavia, it united with Romania after World War I, only to be annexed by the Soviet Union after World War II. The period of Soviet rule in Moldova sought to emphasize a distinct Moldovan identity, separate from the Romanian, affecting how many in Moldova perceive their national identity today. Post the Soviet era, Moldova emerged as an independent nation in 1991. The country has been transitioning to a market economy and multi-party democracy. However, the journey has been challenging, with periods of political instability, corruption, and economic stagnation. making it the poorest nation in Europe. Moldova oscillates between its European aspirations, evident from its EU association agreement aiming to strengthen its ties with Western Europe, and the tangible Russian influence, especially in the breakaway region of Transnistria. Meanwhile, Romania, a member of the EU and NATO, has blossomed post its communist past. While Romania faced economic challenges in the early years of its post-communist transition, it has since become one of the fastest growing economies in the EU. The country has benefited from foreign investments, an educated workforce, and significant infrastructure projects. Despite these differences, Moldova and Romania have a deeply intertwined history, and the cultural, linguistic, and historical ties are evident. However, over the years, especially under the Soviet influence, there was an effort to create a distinct Moldovan identity separate from the Romanian. In Moldova, public opinion on reunification with Romania is varied. While some see it as a natural return to historical norms and a step towards European integration, others value Moldovan sovereignty or are wary of potential geopolitical ramifications. Centuries of shared history mean that both nations celebrate many of the same festivals, customs, and traditions. This cultural kinship plays a significant role in the unification debate. If Moldova were to unite with Romania, it would automatically become part of the EU. This could result in significant economic benefits, including access to EU funds, the elimination of trade barriers, and increased foreign direct investment. Romania, being larger and economically stronger, might help catalyze development projects and infrastructure upgrades in Moldova. One problem for the unification is the economical burden that Romania might face. The estimated cost of the unification is around $10 billion, but due to lower GDP in Moldova, they would only be able to cover about $1.5 billion, leaving the rest to its neighbors. Without the help of the EU, this scenario is highly unlikely. While there is a segment of the population in Moldova that supports unification, particularly among those who see it as a quick path to EU membership, there's also a significant portion that values Moldova's independent identity or is concerned about the geopolitical ramifications. Areas like Gagauzia and Transnistria in Moldova have their own unique identities and geopolitical orientations. Especially Transnistria, with a substantial Russian military presence, would be a major point of contention in any reunification, based on the maps we've seen from Lukashenko. The military presence allows Russia to closely monitor Moldova, controlling their foreign policy and keeping track of their regional developments. Russia has vested interest in the region, especially in Transnistria. A unification might be seen as Moscow as further expansion of EU and NATO influence, likely leading to significant geopolitical pushback. Moldova, stuck in the middle between their EU aspirations and dependency on gas from Russia, faced economic instability at the start of the Ukrainian war. The tensions with Russia have risen since Moldova stopped receiving gas from Gazprom and started relying on Romania through their new pipeline. More than 700,000 Ukrainian refugees have entered the small country, which led to the start of the Kremlin's campaign of trying to destabilize Moldova. During these times of instability, Romania continues to provide energy security and steadiness. Some suggest a phased approach with increased economic, educational, and social cooperation as precursors to any political unification. Any serious move towards unification would likely require referendums in both countries to gauge and validate public support, and would be sure to draw major attention from the international community, especially Russia. Another quick note here, just like Cyprus, Moldova is de jure one country, but with its breakaway regions, it could be considered de facto not one country. Even though the focus of this section could be Moldova reuniting with itself, I still chose to focus on the more popular topic of Moldova uniting with Romania. Belarus, often termed Europe's last dictatorship, has been under the leadership of President Alexander Lukashenko since 1994. With the political system that leans towards authoritarianism, the country has maintained a delicate balance between its Western neighbors and Russia. Russia has had historical, cultural, and political ties with Belarus. Their bond has been formalized in various agreements, the most notable being the Union State, a supranational union agreement signed in 1999 with aims of deeper political, economic, and military integration. Economically, Belarus relies heavily on Russia for its energy needs, particularly oil and gas. In return, Russia values Belarus as a transit route to Europe and as a buffer zone against NATO's eastern flank. While Belarus often appears in the shadow of Russia's political and economic influence, it's essential to recognize their attempts to diversify its foreign relationships, occasionally courting the European Union and other international players. From a geopolitical standpoint, Russia might view the complete integration of Belarus as an enhancement of its western buffer against NATO expansion. However, unification would undoubtedly draw significant international attention, particularly from the EU and NATO. There could be concerns about potential Russian expansionism, as if we don't have enough already, leading to diplomatic and possibly economic repercussions. While there has been people from Belarus who might favor closer ties or even unification with Russia, many also value Belarus's distinct national identity and sovereignty, cultivated over nearly 3 decades of independence. The political unrest and anti-Lukashenko sentiment visible post the 2020 elections might have implications for any unification discourse. It's a signal of the changing mood within Belarus, where many citizens are increasingly voicing their desire for democratic reforms and possibly a more balanced foreign policy. The future trajectories of both countries could change significantly if there were to be a leadership change, especially in Belarus. New leadership might bring new priorities and visions for the nation's future. The foundation for unification, on paper at least, exists in the Union State Agreement. Yet turning these words into reality has proven complex. Some argue that a union would bolster Russia's strategic debt against NATO, yet others believe it could magnify existing tensions between Russia and the West. While Belarus is not physically taking part in the war against Ukraine, they remain a strong ally to Russia. Belarus provided significant strategic advantages for the assault of the Ukrainian capital by opening its borders and providing a shortcut to the Russian soldiers. Recently, Belarus also became a base training ground for the Russian paramilitary organization, the Wagner Group, where thousands of military members train. In the light of their loyalty and strong ties, Belarus has also agreed to host Russia's tactical nuclear weapons, leaving NATO and the Ukrainian supporters worried. Out of all the examples we've talked about today, this one is probably the closest to becoming reality, especially due to the events that have unfolded in the past 2 years. According to various experts, it's all but certain. Of course, anyone that thinks Belarus and Russia are or will be equal partners in the Union is living in denial. Belarus already functions as a junior partner to Russia, and in the event of an actual unification, Belarus would simply be absorbed by Russia. Maybe then Lukashenko can finally have his dream of becoming a colonel in the Russian army be fulfilled. So that's about it for countries that could potentially unite in the future. Of course, these are just some examples that I decided to go through today. There are many other examples like this around the world that we could have gone through, but I do think these were the most entertaining. And of course, let me know in the comments below, which of these do you think is the closest to becoming a reality? Which of these do you think is the furthest from becoming a reality? And let me know in the comments below of any other nations that you know of that maybe I or others haven't heard of that could potentially unite in the future. And of course, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the video and if you want to see more stuff like this. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, definitely make sure to leave a like. It really helps out a lot and it lets me know that you guys well enjoyed the video. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss out on any future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.